Tonight, go outside and look up. On a clear night away from city lights, you can see roughly 2,500 stars with your naked eye. That sky, that exact view, is what every single human who ever lived looked up at every night for 300,000 years. No Netflix, no phones, no lights to drown it out. Just them and that. And here's what nobody tells you. They didn't just look at the stars. They thought about them deeply, obsessively, in ways that modern science is only now beginning to understand, and what they thought changed the entire course of human civilization. Before we talk about what ancient humans thought when they looked up, we need to talk about what they did, because action came before thought, and the action was extraordinary. 40,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now Europe, a human picked up a piece of bone and carved 86 notches into it in a very specific pattern. Researchers call it the eagle bone flute, though others call it something else entirely, because when you map those 86 notches against the lunar cycle, they match exactly. This wasn't art, this wasn't decoration, this was a calendar. A human being 40,000 years ago was tracking the moon, not because anyone told them to, not because they had teachers or universities or books, but because they looked up at the night sky long enough and carefully enough to notice a pattern, and they needed to write it down. Here's what that means. To track the moon, you need to observe it for at least one full cycle, 29.5 days, at the same time each night from the same location, without forgetting. That requires memory, planning, abstraction, and a concept of future time. These are not simple things. Most animals live entirely in the present moment, responding only to what's in front of them. The human who carved those notches was doing something different. They were thinking about a night that hadn't happened yet, planning for a future they couldn't see, and using the sky to do it. Researchers at the Chauvet Cave in France found something even older. On cave walls dating back 36,000 years, they found painted dots. Not random, not decorative. When astronomers mapped them against ancient star charts, they found they matched the Pleiades star cluster to within an acceptable margin. A human being 36,000 years ago looked up at a group of stars, felt something important enough to remember them, climbed deep into a cave, and painted them on a wall, in the dark, by firelight. So they would last. Every ancient culture that has ever been studied, every single one, developed a relationship with the stars, not a scientific one at first, but a personal one. The oldest story ever recorded is not about humans, it's about stars. The Epic of Gilgamesh, written around 2100 BC, but based on oral traditions thousands of years older, opens with the king looking up at the night sky and understanding his own mortality. He sees the stars, realizes they will be there long after he is gone, and that realization changes everything he does for the rest of his life. But this wasn't unique to Mesopotamia. The Aboriginal Australians, who have the oldest continuous culture on Earth, stretching back 65,000 years, have star maps built into their oral tradition, not just for navigation, not just as calendars, but as stories. Specific stars were believed to be ancestors. When someone died, their family would look up, find a star, and say, "There they are. They didn't disappear. They just moved." The Greek word for star, aster, is the same root as disaster, literally meaning bad star. The Romans believed your entire fate was written in the stars before you were born. The word influenza comes from the Latin for influence of the stars, because people once believed illness itself came from above. But why? Why did every culture independently arrive at the same conclusion, that the stars mean something? The answer isn't religion, and it isn't superstition, it's psychology. In 2019, researchers at the University of Toronto published a study on what they called cosmic insignificance therapy. The idea was simple. When people felt overwhelmed by their own problems, anxiety, grief, stress, they were asked to look up at the night sky and spend 5 minutes genuinely contemplating the scale of the universe. The results were immediate. Anxiety dropped significantly, self-obsession decreased, and people reported feeling connected to something larger. The researchers called it the overview effect, the same feeling astronauts describe when they see Earth from space for the first time. Small, interconnected, part of something vast. Ancient humans felt this every single night, not as a therapy exercise, not as a research study, but as their lived reality. There were no city lights to drown out the Milky Way. It stretched overhead from horizon to horizon, a river of light so thick and bright you could almost reach up and touch it. Researchers who have studied modern hunter-gatherer groups report that these communities have named star clusters the way we name streets, knowing them the way you know your own neighborhood. The sky wasn't something above them, it was something they lived inside. And here's what we lost. In 1994, a major earthquake knocked out power across Los Angeles and the city went dark. Something happened that the LA emergency services were completely unprepared for. People started calling 911 to report a strange silver cloud in the sky, panicked, confused, some frightened. The operators didn't know what they were seeing either. It was the Milky Way. An entire city of people had never seen their own galaxy. The sky their ancestors lived inside every single night, the sky that shaped every religion, every calendar, every myth, every culture that ever existed, was completely unknown to the people living beneath it. Astronomers estimate that 1/3 of the entire human population can no longer see the Milky Way from where they live, and in North America, that number is 80%. We built so many lights to chase away the dark that we accidentally erased the thing that made us human, the thing that made us look up and ask, what is that? Why am I here? Does any of this mean anything? Those questions didn't start in churches or classrooms or philosophy books. They started outside at night around a fire with a sky full of stars that demanded an answer. So here's what ancient humans thought when they looked at the stars. They thought they were home. They thought the sky was a map of everything that had ever happened and everything that would ever be. They thought the dead didn't disappear. They just moved higher. They thought the patterns overhead contained instructions for how to live, and maybe they were wrong about the specifics. The stars aren't ancestors. Illness doesn't come from above. Your fate isn't written in the sky. But maybe they were right about something more important. That looking up, really looking up, changes something in you. That the feeling of smallness isn't something to fear. That being a tiny thing on a tiny rock orbiting a medium star in an average galaxy is not a tragedy. It is the most extraordinary thing that has ever happened. And every night for 300,000 years, your ancestors looked up at the same stars you can see tonight and felt it. The same sky, the same feeling, the same question with no answer that somehow makes everything more beautiful, not less. Go outside tonight, look up, they'll still be there.